For 10 years I did everything right with money. At least, that's what I thought. I was the responsible one. The saver. The person who brought lunch from home instead of eating out. Who drove a 10-year-old car. Who never bought coffee at Starbucks. Who clipped coupons and hunted for deals. Who proudly transferred money into my savings account every single month. I was so proud of my savings discipline. I'd look at my bank balance and feel accomplished. $10,000. Then $15,000. Then $20,000. I was building wealth, right? Wrong. After a decade of diligent saving, I had $23,000 in a savings account earning 0.5% interest per year. I felt secure. I felt responsible. I felt like I was winning at money. Then I met my friend Marcus, who made about the same salary I did. We were at a bar, and he casually mentioned he'd just bought his second rental property. I was confused. How can you afford that? We make the same money. He laughed. I don't save money, man. I invest it. Every dollar I make goes to work immediately. Stocks, real estate, my business. Saving money is how you stay broke. I was offended. I thought he was being reckless. I thought I was the smart one with my $23,000 safely tucked away in the bank. But then he showed me his numbers. His net worth wasn't in a savings account. It was in assets that were growing in value and generating income. His rental properties alone were worth over $400,000, and they paid him $3,000 per month in passive income. Meanwhile, my $23,000, a decade of sacrifice, was generating about $9 per month in interest. $9. That's one coffee. Worse, inflation was running at 3% per year, which meant my money was actually losing value every single day it sat in that account. In real terms, my $23,000 had the purchasing power of about $17,000 compared to when I started saving 10 years earlier. I'd spent 10 years saving money and ended up poorer than when I started. That conversation shattered everything I believed about money. I realized I'd been following advice from people who were broke. Save for a rainy day. Don't spend what you don't have. A penny saved is a penny earned. These sayings sound wise. They sound responsible. But they're advice for staying poor, not for building wealth. That day, I made a decision to completely change my relationship with money. I decided to stop being a saver and start being an investor. 5 years later, I have over $250,000 in invested assets generating over $30,000 per year in passive income. I still make roughly the same salary I did back then. But instead of saving my money where it sits and dies, I put every dollar to work where it multiplies. This audiobook is about the fundamental shift in thinking that changed my financial life. It's about understanding why saving money, the thing you've been told your whole life is responsible and smart, is actually keeping you broke. And more importantly, it's about developing the investment mindset that allows you to build real wealth. We're going to challenge everything you think you know about money. By the end of this audiobook, you'll understand that your savings account is not your friend. That inflation is eating your wealth while you sleep. That the difference between rich and poor isn't how much you save, it's how much you invest. Are you ready to stop being a saver and start being an investor? Then let's begin. Chapter 1. The Savings Trap. Let me start with a hard truth. Saving money does not build wealth. It preserves poverty. This sounds crazy. You've been told your entire life that saving is good. Your parents saved. Your grandparents saved. Financial advisors tell you to have an emergency fund. Everyone says, save, save, save. But here's what they don't tell you. Saving made sense in a different economic era. It made sense when interest rates on savings accounts were 6 to 8% and inflation was low. It made sense when a dollar saved today would be worth more tomorrow. That world no longer exists. Today, we live in an economic environment where savings accounts pay less than 1% interest. Inflation runs between 2 to 5% annually. The purchasing power of a dollar decreases every single year. This means that every dollar you save in a traditional savings account is mathematically guaranteed to lose value over time. Let me show you the math. Let's say you save $1,000 today in a savings account earning 0.5% annual interest. After 1 year, you'll have $1,005. But if inflation runs at 3% that year, you now need $1,030 to buy what you could have bought with $1,000 last year. You gained $5 in interest but lost $30 in purchasing power. Your net result? You're $25 poorer in real terms, despite saving your money. This is the savings trap. You feel like you're building wealth because you see your account balance growing. But in reality, you're losing purchasing power every single day. Now multiply this effect over 10 years, 20 years, a lifetime. The damage is catastrophic. If you save $10,000 today and let it sit in a savings account for 20 years, earning 0.5% while inflation averages 3%, your $10,000 will have the purchasing power of roughly $5,500. You will have lost almost half your wealth by doing the responsible thing and saving. This is what happened to me. I saved diligently for a decade and ended up with less purchasing power than I started with. I followed the rules and got punished for it. But here's what really made me angry when I discovered this. Rich people know this. Wealthy people don't save money in savings accounts. They know it's a losing game. Wealthy people immediately convert their cash into assets that either appreciate in value or generate income. Ideally, both. They buy stocks, real estate, businesses, precious metals, anything that will either grow in value or produce cash flow. They understand that cash is a tool, not a goal. Cash sitting in a bank is wasted potential. Cash invested is working capital. Let me give you a comparison using the same $10,000 over 20 years. Scenario A, savings account, start, $10,000, interest rate, 0.5%, after 20 years, $11,050, purchasing power after inflation, about $6,000, result. You lost $4,000 in real value. Scenario B, S&Amp wink with tongue sticking out 500 index fund, start, $10,000, average annual return, 10%, after 20 years, $67,275, even accounting for inflation, about $41,000 in today's money. Result: you gain $31,000 in real value, the same $10,000. The only difference is where you put it. One choice costs you $4,000. The other choice makes you $31,000. That's a $35,000 difference based solely on whether you chose to save or invest. Now imagine making that choice not just once, but every month for 20 years. The difference isn't $35,000. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Potentially millions. This is why saving money keeps you broke and investing makes you wealthy. But the savings trap is more than just math. It's psychological. When you save money, you develop a scarcity mindset. You become afraid to spend. You become obsessed with the balance in your account. You judge every purchase against, how much savings this will cost me. This fear-based relationship with money keeps you small. You don't invest in yourself. You don't take calculated risks. You don't seize opportunities because you're too busy protecting your savings. Meanwhile, people with an investment mindset ask different questions. They don't ask, how much does this cost? They ask, what's the return on this investment? They don't hoard cash. They deploy it strategically to generate more cash. Let me share a personal example. When I was in savings mode, I was offered a business course that cost $2,000. My immediate reaction was, I can't afford that. It would destroy my savings progress this month. So I didn't take the course. And I missed out on knowledge that would have helped me build a side business that now generates over $5,000 per month. That $2,000 savings cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost income over the following years. But someone with an investment mindset would have asked, if this course helps me build a business that generates even $1,000 per month, It pays for itself in 2 months and profits forever after. That's a 100% annual return on investment. They would have bought the course immediately, and they would have become wealthier as a result. This is the fundamental difference. Savers protect what they have. Investors multiply what they have. Now, I'm not saying you should have zero savings. You need an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a readily accessible account. This is insurance, not investment. It protects you from having to go into debt when unexpected expenses arise. But beyond that emergency fund, every additional dollar you save in a low-interest account is a dollar that's dying. It's not working. It's not growing. It's slowly losing value to inflation. The moment you have your emergency fund established, your entire focus should shift from saving to investing. This shift, from being a saver to being an investor, is the most important financial decision you'll ever make. It's the difference between struggling your entire life and building genuine wealth. Your assignment for this chapter: calculate how much money you currently have in savings beyond your emergency fund. That's dead money. That's money that's losing value every day. Hold on to that number. By the end of this audiobook, you'll know exactly what to do with it. Chapter 2. The investment mindset: understanding why saving keeps you broke is step 1. Step 2 is developing the investment mindset that builds wealth. The investment mindset is fundamentally different from the savings mindset. It's not just about where you put your money, it's about how you think about money in the first place. Let me break down the key differences. Difference 1. Time perspective: the savings mindset focuses on the present and near future. I need to save for next month's rent. I need to save for a vacation. I need to save for a down payment. The investment mindset focuses on compound returns over decades. How will this decision affect my wealth in 20 years? What will this asset be worth when I retire? How much passive income will this generate over time? Savers think in months. Investors think in decades. This time horizon completely changes your decisions. When you're thinking about next month, you make conservative choices. When you're thinking about the next 20 years, you make growth choices. Let me give you an example. You have $5,000. What do you do with it? Savings mindset: I'll put it in my savings account. I might need it for something unexpected. Investment mindset: I'll invest it in an index fund. In 20 years, at a 10% annual return, this will be worth about $34,000. If I need cash for an emergency, I have my emergency fund. This $5,000 is for my future self. Same $5,000. Completely different outcomes based on time perspective. Difference 2. Risk tolerance: the savings mindset is risk-averse. It prioritizes safety over growth. I don't want to lose money, so I'll keep it in the bank where it's guaranteed. The investment mindset understands that the biggest risk is not investing. It recognizes that avoiding investment risk guarantees the certainty of inflation eroding your wealth. Investors understand that calculated risk is how wealth is built. Yes, investments can go down in value, but over long time horizons, quality investments consistently grow. The stock market has averaged about 10% annual returns over the past century. Yes, there are bad years. Yes, there are crashes. But if you're investing for 20 or 30 years, those short-term fluctuations don't matter. Meanwhile, the safe choice of keeping money in a savings account guarantees you'll lose purchasing power every single year. It's the illusion of safety. Difference 3. Growth versus preservation: the savings mindset is about preservation. I have this money, and I want to make sure I don't lose it. The investment mindset is about multiplication. I have this money, and I want to turn it into more money. Savers are playing defense. Investors are playing offense. And here's the truth: you cannot win playing only defense. Preservation at best keeps you where you are, and with inflation, it actually moves you backwards. Growth is the only path to wealth. And growth requires investment, not savings. Difference 4. Money as tool versus money as goal. The savings mindset treats money as the end goal. The objective is to accumulate a large number in your bank account. You measure success by how much you've saved. The investment mindset treats money as a tool, a means to an end. The objective is to use money to generate more money, which generates freedom, security, and options. Investors don't measure success by their bank account balance. They measure it by their net worth, the value of all their assets minus debts, and their passive income, money they earn without actively working. These are completely different metrics. You can have a large savings account balance but low net worth and zero passive income. You're cash rich but wealth poor. Or you can have a small cash balance but high net worth and substantial passive income. You're cash poor but wealth rich. Guess which person sleeps better at night? The person with passive income. Because they know that even if they stop working, money keeps flowing in from their investments. The person with savings has to keep working. If they stop, the money stops. And meanwhile, inflation is eating their savings every day. Difference 5. Education and knowledge. The savings mindset requires no financial education. You just need to know how to transfer money from checking to savings. That's it. No learning required. The investment mindset requires continuous learning. You need to understand different asset classes. You need to learn about stocks, bonds, real estate, businesses. You need to understand risk, returns, diversification, tax implications. This learning curve is why many people never develop an investment mindset. It's easier to just save. It's comfortable. It's what everyone else does. But this comfort costs you generational wealth. I spent 10 years saving and learning nothing about money. When I finally started investing, I had to educate myself from scratch. I read books. I took courses. I listened to podcasts. I made small investments to learn how different assets worked. It was uncomfortable. It was overwhelming at first. But this education has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars and will make me millions more over my lifetime. That education was the best investment I ever made. Difference 6. Active versus passive wealth building. The savings mindset is passive. You earn money, you save a portion, and that's it. Your wealth is determined entirely by how much you can save from your active income. This creates a ceiling. You can only save as much as you earn minus your expenses. If you make $50,000 per year and save $10,000, that's your ceiling. $10,000 per year. At that rate, you'll save $100,000 in 10 years. And that's if you never have an emergency, never take a vacation, never have any lifestyle inflation. The investment mindset is active multiplication. You earn money, you invest it, it grows, it generates returns, you reinvest those returns, which generate more returns. This is compound growth. With compound growth, there's no ceiling. Your wealth can grow exponentially, not linearly. Let me show you the difference with an example. Person A, saver, saves $10,000 per year. After 30 years, $300,000 saved, plus minimal interest. About $320,000 total. Person B, investor, invests $10,000 per year, gets 10% average annual return, after 30 years. $1,800,000. Same $10,000 per year. Same 30 years. But person B ends up with over 5 times more wealth than person A. That's the power of the investment mindset. Now, let me address the biggest objection people have when I explain this. But I don't have money to invest. I can barely save anything. Here's the truth. If you can save $10, you can invest $10. If you can save $100 per month, you can invest $100 per month. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is developing the habit and the mindset. What matters is understanding that every dollar should be working for you, not sitting idle. I started investing with $50 per month. That's it. I couldn't afford more. But that $50 per month, invested consistently for 5 years, grew to over $4,000. And more importantly, it taught me how investing works. It built my confidence, proved the concept. Now I invest thousands of dollars per month because I've built income streams that generate excess cash to invest. But I could only get here because I started small and developed the investment mindset. You don't need to be rich to start investing. You need to start investing to become rich. Your assignment for this chapter: write down the difference between how you currently think about money, savings mindset, and how you want to think about money, investment mindset. Be honest about where you are. Then commit to shifting your thinking over the next 90 days by consuming content, reading books, and taking small investment actions to build the new mindset. Chapter 3: Understanding Inflation, the Invisible Thief. Before we talk about what to invest in, you need to fully understand your enemy, inflation. Inflation is the reason saving money keeps you broke. It's the silent thief that steals your wealth while you sleep, and most people dramatically underestimate its impact. Let's start with what inflation actually is. Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services rises, which means the purchasing power of currency falls. In simple terms, over time, stuff costs more, which means your money buys less. If inflation is 3% per year, something that costs $100 this year will cost $103 next year, which means if you have $100 saved, you can no longer afford that item. You've lost 3% of your purchasing power. Now, 3% doesn't sound like much, but compound that over decades and the impact is devastating. Let's look at real numbers. In 1970, the average price of a new home was about $23,000. In 2020, the average price was about $380,000. That's a 16-fold increase. If you saved $23,000 in 1970 and kept it in cash for 50 years, you wouldn't even have enough for a down payment on a home in 2020. Your money didn't just sit there. It rotted. It died. Inflation killed it. Here's another way to visualize inflation's impact. Let's say you have $100,000 saved today. Assuming 3% annual inflation, in 10 years, it has the purchasing power of about $74,000. In 20 years, about $55,000. In 30 years, about $41,000. You still have $100,000 in your account. But you can only buy what $41,000 buys today. You've lost 59% of your wealth by doing absolutely nothing wrong except keeping it in cash. This is why the savings mindset is a trap. You're not preserving wealth. You're watching it evaporate. Now let's talk about the official inflation rate versus the real inflation rate. The government reports inflation numbers based on the Consumer Price Index, CPI, which tracks a basket of goods and services. In recent years, official inflation has been reported around 2 to 3% annually. But many economists argue that real inflation, the actual increase in cost of living, is much higher. Why? Because the CPI calculation has changed over time and doesn't include certain major expenses like housing in the same way it used to. If you look at specific categories, healthcare costs have risen about 6% annually, college tuition has risen about 8% annually, housing in major cities has risen 10 to 15% annually, so while the official rate might say 3%, your actual cost of living might be rising 5 to 7% per year. This means the erosion of your purchasing power is even worse than official numbers suggest. Let me give you a personal example. When I started my career 15 years ago, my rent for a one-bedroom apartment was $800 per month. Today, that same apartment rents for $2,200 per month. That's a 175% increase. Meanwhile, official inflation over that period was about 35%. If I'd saved enough money to pay my rent for 1 year back then, $9,600, and just kept it in savings for 15 years, that money wouldn't even cover 5 months of rent today. This is real. This is happening to your money right now, whether you acknowledge it or not. Now here's where it gets even more insidious. Most people don't feel inflation day to day because it happens gradually. A coffee goes from $3 to $3.25. You barely notice. Your grocery bill goes from $150 to $165 per week. It feels like a slight increase. But compound these small increases across everything you buy, over years and decades, and suddenly you wake up wondering why you can't afford the same lifestyle you used to have even though you're making more money than ever. That's inflation. It's like aging. You don't notice it day to day, but over years, the cumulative effect is undeniable. So how do you fight inflation? There's only one way. Your money must grow faster than the rate of inflation. If inflation is 3% and your money is growing at 0.5% in a savings account, you're losing 2.5% per year. But if your money is invested and growing at 10% per year, you're beating inflation by 7%. You're not just preserving wealth, you're building it. This is why wealthy people don't keep their wealth in cash. They immediately convert cash into assets that historically outpace inflation. Stocks have returned about 10% annually. Real estate has appreciated about 5 to 7% annually, plus rental income. Businesses can generate returns of 20% or more. These assets don't just preserve value, they multiply it faster than inflation can erode it. Let me show you the dramatic difference this makes. Scenario A. You save $1,000 per month for 30 years in a savings account earning 0.5%. Total deposited, $360,000, account value, about $375,000, but with 3% inflation, purchasing power, about $160,000, result. You save for 30 years and have less than half the purchasing power you deposited. Scenario B. You invest $1,000 per month for 30 years in an index fund averaging 10%. Total deposited, $360,000. Investment value, about $2,264,000. After accounting for inflation, about $930,000 in purchasing power. Result. You invested for 30 years and have nearly 6 times the purchasing power you deposited. Same $360,000 deposited. You're not just preserving wealth, you're building it. This is why wealthy people don't keep their wealth in cash. They immediately convert cash into assets that historically outpace inflation. Stocks have returned about 10% annually. Real estate has appreciated about 5 to 7% annually, plus rental income. Businesses can generate returns of 20% or more. These assets don't just preserve value, they multiply it faster than inflation can erode it. Let me show you the dramatic difference this makes. Same 30 years. The only difference is whether you saved or invested. One choice gives you $160,000 in purchasing power. The other gives you $930,000. That's a $770,000 difference simply because you understood inflation and chose to beat it instead of surrendering to it. This is not theoretical. This is math. This is inevitable. Inflation is going to happen whether you prepare for it or not. The question is, are you going to let it destroy your wealth, or are you going to position your money where inflation can't touch it? People who save are choosing to let inflation win. People who invest are choosing to beat it. Your assignment for this chapter: calculate how much purchasing power you've lost to inflation over the past 10 years. Take however much you had saved 10 years ago and calculate what it would buy in today's dollars, accounting for 3% annual inflation. Face this loss directly. Let it motivate you to never let inflation steal from you again. Chapter 4. The Asset Classes. Where to invest your money? Now that you understand why you must invest rather than save, the question becomes, invest in what? This chapter breaks down the primary asset classes available to regular people and explains the advantages and disadvantages of each. Asset Class 1. Stocks, public equities. Stocks represent ownership in publicly traded companies. When you buy stock, you own a tiny piece of that company. Advantages: historically strong returns, averaging 10% annually, highly liquid, you can sell any time the market is open. Low barrier to entry, you can start with as little as $10. Diversification is easy, you can own hundreds of companies through index funds. Passive, requires no active management. Disadvantages: short-term volatility, prices fluctuate daily. Requires emotional discipline, You must resist panic selling during downturns. Can be overwhelming for beginners, thousands of options. Best for long-term wealth building, retirement accounts, passive investors my take. For most people, index funds that track the S&P wink with tongue sticking out 500 or total stock market are the best foundation for building wealth. You get instant diversification, historical returns of 10% annually, and complete passivity. I have about 60% of my invested assets in stock index funds. It's my wealth foundation. Starting recommendation: open a brokerage account, Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. Invest in a low-cost S&P wink with tongue sticking out 500 index fund. Set up automatic monthly investments. Never sell unless you need the money in retirement. Asset Class 2. Real estate. Real estate includes residential properties, houses, apartments, and commercial properties, office buildings, retail spaces. Advantages: tangible asset, you can see and touch it. Generates cash flow, rental income. Appreciates in value over time, historically 5 to 7% annually. Leverage opportunity, you can use borrowed money to control large assets. Tax advantages: depreciation, deductions. Disadvantages: high barrier to entry, usually need at least 20 to 25% down payment. Requires active management, dealing with tenants, maintenance, repairs. Illiquid, takes months. To sell, location dependent, value tied to specific geographic area. Can be time intensive. Best for people with capital to invest, those who enjoy active management, long-term wealth building my take. Real estate is powerful but not passive. It's best as a second layer of investment after you've built a stock portfolio base. I own 2 rental properties that generate about $3,500 per month in net cash flow. But I only invested in real estate after I had a solid stock portfolio established. Starting recommendation: if you're interested in real estate but don't have capital for a property, start with REITs, real estate investment trusts, which allow you to invest in real estate through the stock market with as little as $100. Asset Class 3. Bonds. Bonds are loans you make to companies or governments. They pay you interest over a fixed period, then return your principal. Advantages: lower risk than stocks, predictable income, fixed interest payments. Helps balance portfolio during stock market downturns. Disadvantages: lower returns, typically 3 to 5%. Interest rate risk: bond values fall when interest rates rise. Returns barely beat inflation. Best for conservative investors, retirees who need stable income, portfolio diversification my take. Bonds are important for older investors nearing retirement, but young investors should focus almost entirely on stocks for maximum growth. I keep about 10% of my portfolio in bonds just for stability, but I don't focus on them because I have decades until retirement. Starting recommendation: if you're under 40, don't worry about bonds yet. Focus on stocks. After 40, gradually add bonds to reduce volatility as you approach retirement. Asset Class 4. Small business/side hustle. This includes starting your own business or investing in someone else's business. Advantages: unlimited return potential, can generate 50%, 100%, or higher returns. Full control over your investment, can start small. Many businesses start with less than $1,000. Active income can be converted to investment capital. Disadvantages: high failure rate, most businesses fail within 5 years. Requires significant time and effort. Income is uncertain, stressful. Best for entrepreneurial people, those with specific skills or knowledge to monetize. Risk takers my take. Building a business is the fastest way to generate large amounts of capital to invest. My side business generates over $5,000 per month, all of which I invest in stocks and real estate. But businesses are risky and demand your time. They shouldn't be your only investment strategy. Starting recommendation: if you have a skill, knowledge, or passion you can monetize, start a small side business. But treat the income from that business as investment capital. Immediately move it into stocks or real estate rather than spending it. Asset Class 5. Your own skills and knowledge. This is the most overlooked investment. Investing in yourself. Advantages. Can dramatically increase your earning power. Return on investment can be enormous. A $2,000 course that helps you earn an extra $10,000 per year has a 500% annual ROI. Can never be taken away or lose value. Compounds over your lifetime. Disadvantages. Returns are indirect. Education doesn't directly generate money, you have to apply it. Hard to measure ROI precisely. Requires discipline to apply what you learn. Best for everyone, especially early in career. My take. I invest thousands of dollars annually in courses, books, and coaching. This has increased my income more than any stock or real estate investment ever could. Starting recommendation. Identify the skill that would most increase your income. Invest in learning that skill through courses, books, or coaching. Then apply it to increase your earnings and invest the additional income. Now let's talk about portfolio allocation. How to divide your money across these asset classes. The simple rule. Your allocation should match your timeline and risk tolerance. If you're young, under 40, with decades until retirement, 80 to 90% stocks, 0 to 10% bonds, 10 to 20% in your own skills/business. If you're middle-aged, 40 to 55, 60 to 70% stocks, 20 to 30% bonds, 10 to 20% real estate or business. If you're approaching retirement, 55 plus, 40 to 50% stocks, 40 to 50% bonds, 10 to 20% real estate generating. Cash flow. These are general guidelines. Your specific situation might warrant different allocations. But the key principle is, the younger you are, the more aggressively you should invest in growth assets like stocks. One final critical point. Diversification is your friend. Don't put all your money in one stock. Don't put all your money in one rental property. Don't bet everything on one business. Spread your investments across different assets, different sectors, different geographic areas. This way, if one investment performs poorly, others can compensate. Index funds are beautiful because they give you instant diversification. One S&Amp wink with tongue sticking out 500 index fund gives you ownership in 500 different companies across all sectors of the economy. Your assignment for this chapter. Research one asset class that interests you. Read articles, watch videos, understand how it works. Then make a small investment in that asset class, even if it's just $50. The goal is to start, learn by doing, and build confidence. Chapter 5. The Compound Effect. Your wealth multiplier. Now we come to the most powerful concept in all of investing. Compound interest. Albert Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, and said, "He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it." Understanding compound interest is the difference between building modest wealth and building extraordinary wealth with the same effort. Let me start with the basic concept. Simple interest means your money grows by a fixed amount each year. If you invest $1,000 at 10% simple interest, you earn $100 per year every year. After 10 years, you have $2,000. Compound interest means your earnings also earn earnings. That $100 you earned in year 1 also earns 10% in year 2. So in year 2, you earn $110 instead of $100. In year 3, you earn $121. And so on. After 10 years with compound interest, you don't have $2,000. You have $2,593. Doesn't sound that dramatic, right? $593 difference after 10 years. But watch what happens over longer time periods. After 20 years, simple interest, $3,000, compound interest, $6,727. After 30 years, simple interest, $4,000, compound interest, $17,449. Same $1,000 starting investment. Same 10% annual return. But compound interest produces over 4 times more wealth after 30 years. This is why time is your most valuable asset when investing. The longer your money compounds, the more dramatic the growth. Let me show you an example that changed how I think about money forever. 2 friends, Sarah and Mike, Both want to retire wealthy. Sarah starts investing at age 25. She invests $5,000 per year for 10 years, ages 25 to 35, then stops. Total invested, $50,000. Mike waits until 35 to start investing. He invests $5,000 per year for 30 years, ages 35 to 65. Total invested, $150,000. Both earn 10% annual returns. Who has more money at 65? Sarah, $1,436,000. Mike, $904,000. Read that again. Sarah invested $50,000 total and ended up with over $500,000 more than Mike, who invested $150,000. How? Because she started early and let compound interest do its magic for 40 years. Mike started late and only had 30 years of compounding. This is the power of starting early. Every year you delay investing costs you exponentially more than you realize. When I learned this, I was 29. I'd wasted nearly a decade saving instead of investing. If I'd started investing at 20 instead of 29, with the same $5,000 per year, I'd have about $300,000 more by the time I retire. That delay cost me $300,000. That's what not understanding compound interest costs. Now let me show you how compound interest works in different scenarios to help you visualize its power. Scenario 1. Monthly investment. Invest $500 per month, $6,000 per year, at 10% annual return. After 5 years, $38,700 after 10 years, $102,000 after 20 years, $382,000 after 30 years, $1,132,000. You invested $180,000 over 30 years, $500 times 12 months times 30 years. But you have $1,132,000. Where did the extra $952,000 come from? Compound interest. Your money making money, which made more money, which made more money. Scenario 2. The power of doubling. Here's another way to visualize compound growth. At a 10% annual return, your money doubles approximately every 7 years. Start with $10,000, year 7, $20,000, year 14, $40,000, year 21, $80,000, year 28, $160,000, year 35, $320,000. You didn't add a single dollar after the initial $10,000. But compound interest turned it into $320,000 over 35 years. This is why even small amounts matter. That $50 per month I started with? It seemed insignificant. But over decades, it would have compounded into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now let's talk about the compound effect of not investing. Compound loss. We talked about inflation earlier. Inflation compounds too, but against you. If you have $10,000 in a savings account and inflation runs at 3% annually, after 5 years, $8,586 purchasing power after 10 years, $7,374 purchasing power after 20 years, $5,437 purchasing power after 30 years, $4,001 purchasing power. You didn't spend a dollar. But you lost 60% of your wealth to compound inflation. This is the invisible theft that's happening to every dollar you save instead of invest. Here's the most important insight about compound interest. Small differences in return rates create massive differences in wealth over time. Let's compare different return rates on the same $10,000 investment over 30 years. 2%. Savings account $18,113. 5%. Bonds $43,219. 8%. Conservative investments $106. $600. 10%. Stock market average $174,494. 12%. Aggressive investments $290. $9,599. The difference between 2% and 12% is only 10 percentage points. But it's the difference between $18,000 and $300,000. This is why fees matter enormously. If you're invested in funds with high fees that reduce your returns by even 2% annually, You're costing yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. Always choose low-cost index funds. Every percentage point of fees is a massive amount of compound growth you're giving away. Here's another crucial concept. The earlier you start, the less you need to invest. Let's say you want $1 million by age 65, earning 10% annually. If you start at age 25, you need to invest about $372 per month. If you start at age 35, you need to invest about $875 per month. If you start at age 45, you need to invest about $2,425 per month. Starting 10 years earlier means you need to invest less than half as much per month to reach the same goal. Starting 20 years earlier means you need to invest less than 1/5 as much. This is why starting young is such an enormous advantage. Not because young people have more money, but because they have more time for compounding. But here's the good news. It's never too late to benefit from compounding. Even if you're 40 or 50 or 60, compound interest still works. You just need to invest more aggressively to make up for lost time. Let me share my personal compound interest strategy. Every month, I invest about 40% of my income. Yes, 40%. That seems extreme, but here's my thinking. I'm 29 years old with about 35 years until retirement. If I invest aggressively now and let compound interest work for 35 years, I'll have millions of dollars and complete financial freedom. Those millions won't come from saving. They'll come from compound growth. My 40% investment rate will turn into returns that dwarf my initial investment. I'd rather live modestly now and invest aggressively than live comfortably now and work until I'm 70. Your assignment for this chapter: use a compound interest calculator online and run different scenarios. Play with the numbers. See what happens if you invest $200 per month versus $500 per month. See what 10 years versus 30 years of compounding produces. Let these numbers sink in. Let them motivate you. Chapter 6. Overcoming the psychological barriers to investing. By now, you understand intellectually why you must invest. You understand that saving keeps you broke. You understand compound interest. You understand inflation. But knowledge alone doesn't change behavior. Because investing isn't just a math problem, it's a psychological challenge. This chapter addresses the mental and emotional barriers that prevent people from investing even when they know they should. Barrier 1. Fear of loss. The number one reason people don't invest is fear. What if I lose my money? What if the market crashes? What if I pick the wrong investment? This fear is real and understandable, but it's based on a misunderstanding of risk. Here's the truth. The riskiest financial decision you can make is to not invest. Because by not investing, you guarantee that inflation will erode your wealth. You're not choosing between risk and safety. You're choosing between the risk of short-term volatility and the certainty of long-term inflation loss. Yes, the stock market goes down sometimes dramatically. But over long periods, 20, 30, 40 years, it has always gone up. It has always recovered. It has always produced positive returns. If you're investing for decades, short-term volatility is meaningless. It's just noise. What matters is the long-term trajectory, which is unmistakably upward. Let me put this in perspective. Since 1926, the stock market has had positive returns in 73 out of 96 years, never had a negative return over any 20-year period, averaged about 10% annually including all crashes, recessions, and disasters. Your fear of loss is focusing on the 23 bad years and ignoring the 73 good years. It's focusing on short-term volatility and ignoring long-term growth. Here's how I overcame this fear. I invested a small amount, just $100, and watched it. Within a month, it went down to $93. I felt panic. Then over the next year, it grew to $115. That experience taught me that fluctuations are normal and temporary. I learned that I could emotionally handle seeing my investments go down because I trusted they'd recover. Start small. Build emotional tolerance. Prove to yourself that volatility doesn't matter over time. Barrier 2. I don't have money to invest. This is the most common excuse, and it's usually false. Most people who say they can't afford to invest can afford to pay for streaming services, buy coffee regularly, eat out multiple times per week, and make other discretionary purchases. The truth isn't that you can't afford to invest. It's that you're prioritizing spending over investing. Let me be blunt. If you can afford $50 per month for cable TV, you can afford $50 per month for investments. It's a choice. And here's the thing. That $50 per month invested over 30 years becomes almost $120,000. That cable subscription becomes $0. You're not choosing between investing and not investing. You're choosing between having $50 more per month now and having $120,000 in retirement. When you frame it that way, the choice is obvious. My recommendation: track every dollar you spend for 1 month. Then identify expenses that bring you less value than future financial security would. Cut those expenses. Invest the difference. You'll be shocked how much you can find when you're honest about your priorities. Barrier 3. Investing is too complicated. Many people avoid investing because they feel overwhelmed by all the options, terms, and decisions. But here's the secret. Successful investing is actually incredibly simple. You don't need to become a financial expert. You don't need to pick individual stocks. You don't need to time the market or understand complex strategies. You just need to do 3 things. 1. Open a brokerage account. 2. Buy a low-cost S&P wink with tongue sticking out 500 index fund. 3. Invest regularly and never sell. That's it. That's the entire strategy that will make you wealthy. Everything else is noise and complication that doesn't improve your results and might actually hurt them. The financial industry benefits from making investing seem complicated because complexity justifies high fees for advice and management. But study after study shows that simple, passive index fund investing outperforms the vast majority of actively managed funds. Simple works. Simple is actually better. I invest in exactly 3 funds: 1 U.S. stock index, 1 international stock index, and 1 bond index. That's my entire portfolio. Takes me 10 minutes per month to manage. And it's outperforming most actively managed portfolios. You don't need complexity. You need consistency. Barrier 4. I'll start when I make more money. This is postponement disguised as prudence. The logic seems sound. I can barely afford my expenses now. When I get a raise or a better job, then I'll start investing. But this is a trap. Because when you make more money, your expenses typically rise too. You upgrade your lifestyle. So you never actually have excess money to invest. This is called lifestyle inflation, and it keeps people broke at every income level. The solution is to start investing with whatever you can right now. Even if it's just $25 per month. Even if it seems insignificant. Because starting builds the habit. It shifts your identity from someone who will invest someday to someone who invests. And that identity shift is more valuable than the $25. Then, when you do get a raise, you increase your investment by that amount instead of inflating your lifestyle. Your lifestyle stays the same, but your investment rate grows. This is how I went from investing $50 per month to over $2,000 per month in just 5 years. Every raise, every bonus, every increase in income went straight to investments, not to a nicer apartment or newer car. The lifestyle I lived on $40,000 per year is basically the same lifestyle I live on $70,000 per year. But now I invest $30,000 per year instead of $500. Don't wait. Start now with whatever you can. Build the habit and identity now. Barrier 5. What if I need that money? This fear is about liquidity, having access to cash when you need it. It's valid, which is why I've repeatedly emphasized, build an emergency fund first. 3 to 6 months of expenses in a readily accessible savings account. This emergency fund is your security. It means you'll never have to sell investments at a bad time to cover unexpected expenses. But once you have that emergency fund, everything else should be invested. Because, what if I need it? Usually means, what if I want to spend it? And spending money on wants today is choosing poverty tomorrow. The psychological shift is understanding that invested money isn't gone. It's working. And if you truly needed it for an actual emergency, you could access it. But you won't need it because you have your emergency fund. I sleep soundly at night knowing I have 6 months of expenses in cash. Everything else is working for me in investments. I never worry about needing that invested money because I've planned for genuine emergencies. Barrier 6. The market is too high/too low/too volatile. This is market timing anxiety. Should I wait for a crash to invest? Is now a bad time? Here's the answer. The best time to invest was yesterday. The second best time is today. Trying to time the market, waiting for the perfect moment to invest, usually means you miss years of growth waiting for a crash that may or may not come. Studies show that time in the market beats timing the market. A person who invests immediately and stays invested will almost always outperform someone who waits for the right time. Why? Because even if you invest right before a crash, over a 20 or 30-year period, that crash becomes a tiny blip. The long-term growth overwhelms any short-term volatility. I started investing in early 2020, right before COVID crashed the market. My initial investments dropped 25% within weeks. I was terrified. But I didn't sell. I kept investing monthly. And you know what? Within a year, I was back to even. Within 2 years, I was up 30%. That crash that seemed devastating at the time is now completely irrelevant to my long-term trajectory. Stop trying to time the market. Just get in and stay in. Your assignment for this chapter: identify which psychological barrier is strongest for you. Write out your fear or excuse. Then write a counter-argument to that fear based on what you've learned. Challenge your own thinking. Then take one small action that proves your barrier wrong, even if it's investing just $25. Chapter 7. The Investment Action Plan. We've covered the theory. Now it's time for action. This chapter gives you the exact step-by-step process to stop saving and start investing. This isn't vague advice. This is a concrete plan you can implement starting today. Step 1. Build your emergency fund, if you don't have one. Before you invest a single dollar, you need 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a readily accessible savings account. Calculate your monthly expenses: rent, utilities, food, insurance, minimum debt payments. Multiply by 3 to 6. That's your emergency fund target. If you don't have this yet, pause all investment activity and build this fund first. Save aggressively until you reach the target. Why? Because investing requires a long-term mindset. You need to be able to leave your investments untouched for years or decades. An emergency fund ensures you'll never have to sell investments at a bad time to cover unexpected expenses. Timeline: aim to build this fund in 6 to 12 months. If your expenses are $2,000 per month, you need $6,000 to $12,000. Save $500 to $1,000 per month until you reach it. Step 2. Open a brokerage account. Once you have your emergency fund, immediately open a brokerage account. I recommend Vanguard, Fidelity, or Charles Schwab. All three are reputable, have low fees, and offer excellent index funds. This takes about 15 minutes. You'll need your Social Security number, bank account information for transfers, basic personal information. Don't overthink which brokerage to choose. They're all good. Just pick one and open the account today. Step 3. Set up automatic monthly investments. Decide how much you can invest monthly. Start with whatever amount you can genuinely afford, even if it's just $50. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your brokerage account. Make it happen the day after your paycheck hits so you never see the money and aren't tempted to spend it. This automation is crucial. It removes willpower from the equation. Investing becomes a fixed expense like rent. It happens automatically whether you feel like it or not. Step 4. Choose your investment. Keep it simple. For most people, I recommend putting all your money into a single low-cost S&P wink with tongue sticking out 500 index fund. At Vanguard, that's VFIAX, Vanguard 500 Index Fund Admiral Shares, or VOO, Vanguard S&P wink with tongue sticking out 500 ETF. At Fidelity, it's FXAIX, Fidelity 500 Index Fund. At Schwab, it's SWPPX, Schwab S&P wink with tongue sticking out 500 Index Fund. These funds, track the 500 largest U.S. companies, have historically returned about 10% annually, charge almost no fees, expense ratios under 0.1%, require no active management, provide instant diversification. Just pick one and buy it with every monthly contribution. Don't try to get fancy. Don't pick individual stocks. Don't try to time the market. Don't diversify across 20 different funds. Keep it simple. Step 5. Increase your investment rate every 6 months. Every 6 months, increase your monthly investment amount. If you're investing $200 per month now, increase to $250 in 6 months, then $300 6 months later. This gradual increase is manageable. You adapt to the slightly reduced cash flow before increasing again. Your goal should be to eventually invest at least 20% of your gross income. If you make $50,000 per year, that's $10,000 per year or about $833 per month. This might seem impossible from where you are now, but remember, you're building up to it gradually. And as your income increases through raises and career growth, your investment rate should increase faster than your expenses. Step 6. Never sell, except in retirement. This is the hardest step for most people. When the market drops, and it will, you'll be tempted to sell to preserve what you have. Don't. Selling during a downturn locks in your losses. The only way to recover is to stay invested. I have a personal rule. I'm not allowed to even look at my investment balances more than once per quarter, because checking daily creates emotional reactions to normal volatility. I invest monthly. I ignore the balance. I trust that over 20 or 30 years, it will grow. You need this same discipline. Invest and ignore. Resist the urge to tinker, to check constantly, to react to market movements. Step 7. Reinvest all dividends. Your index fund will pay dividends, a share of the profits from the companies you own. Your brokerage will ask if you want these paid out as cash or reinvested. Always reinvest. Reinvested dividends buy more shares, which generate more dividends, which buy more shares. This is compound growth in action. Over decades, reinvested dividends can account for 30 to 40% of your total returns. Never take them as cash unless you're retired and living off the income. Step 8. Review and adjust annually once per year. I do mine every January. Review your overall financial situation. Check. Am I investing enough to meet my long-term goals? Has my income increased enough that I should increase my investment rate? Do I need to rebalance my portfolio? This only matters if you have bonds or multiple asset classes. This annual review keeps you on track without requiring constant attention. Step 9. Educate yourself. Continuously commit to reading at least one investing book per year and listening to financial podcasts regularly. Not to change your strategy. Your simple index fund strategy is already correct. But to reinforce your understanding, build your confidence, and stay motivated. Some book recommendations. The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. The Little Book of Common Sense Investing by John Bogle. The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. Step 10. Teach others. Once you've been investing for 6 months to a year and have experienced the process firsthand, teach someone else. Explain to a friend why saving keeps you broke. Help a family member open their first brokerage account. Share your journey on social media. Teaching reinforces your own commitment and helps others escape the savings trap. Real-life example. My personal action plan, let me show you exactly what I did. Month 1. Had $5,000 saved. Designated $3,000 as emergency fund. Opened Vanguard account. Invested $2,000 in VFIAX. Month 2 to 6. Added $50 per month while building emergency fund to 6 months expenses. Month 7 to 12. Increased monthly investment to $300 after completing emergency fund. Month 13 to 18. Got a raise. Increased investment to $600 per month. Month 19 to 24. Cut discretionary spending. Increased investment to $800 per month. Year 2. Gradually increased to $1,000 per month. Year 3. Started side business. Invested 100% of side business income, averaging $1,500 per month additional. Year 4. Increased base investment to $1,500 per month plus all side business income. Year 5. Current investing about $2,500 per month total between main income and business income. Current portfolio value, over $200,000, includes growth from investments. This didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, consistent, disciplined action over 5 years. But that 5 years passed anyway. If I'd kept saving instead of investing, I'd have maybe $40,000 with almost no growth. Instead, I have over $200,000 and it's growing every day. You can do this too. Start today with Step 1. Your assignment for this chapter. Complete Step 1 and Step 2 this week. Calculate your emergency fund need. If you already have it, open a brokerage account today. If you don't have it yet, open a high-yield savings account and commit to building it in the next 6 to 12 months. Don't wait. Act now. Conclusion. The wealth you're creating right now, we've reached the end of this audiobook, but you're at the beginning of your journey to real wealth. Let me tell you where I am today, 5 years after I stopped saving and started investing. I have $250,000 in invested assets growing at about 10% per year. At this rate, even if I stopped investing today, I'd have over $650,000 in 15 years when I'm 44. If I keep investing at my current rate, I'll have over $1.5 million. But here's what matters more. I'm no longer anxious about money. I know that every month, my wealth is growing whether I think about it or not. I know that compound interest is working for me while I sleep. I know that in 15 years, I'll have the option to retire if I want. Not because I saved, but because I invested. This security, this peace of mind, this freedom, it's priceless. And it started with one decision: to stop saving and start investing. You're now at that same decision point. You know that saving money keeps you broke. You understand that inflation is stealing your wealth every day. You understand that compound interest is the most powerful wealth-building force available to regular people. You know exactly what to do. The only question is, will you do it? Most people won't. They'll listen to this audiobook, feel inspired for a few days, then go back to their old patterns. They'll keep saving. They'll keep losing to inflation. They'll reach retirement age and wonder why they're broke despite being responsible with money. Don't be most people. Take action today. This week. Commit to the investment action plan. Start small if you need to, but start. Because here's the truth. Every day you delay is a day of compound growth you'll never get back. Every month you save instead of invest is purchasing power you're surrendering to inflation. 5 years from now, you'll wish you'd started today. So start today. Let me leave you with a final thought. The difference between financial stress and financial freedom isn't how much you make, it's what you do with what you make. I know people making 6 figures who are broke because they save nothing and invest nothing. I know people making $40,000 per year who are building wealth because they invest 20% of every paycheck. Your future wealth is being determined by the decisions you're making right now. Not someday. Right now. You can choose to keep saving and surrender to inflation. Or you can choose to start investing and harness compound growth. One path leads to decades of financial stress, followed by a retirement where you're one emergency away from poverty. The other path leads to steadily growing wealth, increasing financial security, and ultimately the freedom to retire comfortably or even early. Both paths require discipline. Both require sacrifice. But one multiplies your efforts exponentially while the other rewards you with slow decay. Choose wisely. Your future self is counting on you. Stop saving. Start investing. Build wealth that lasts. The clock on compound interest started ticking the day you were born. Every day you're not investing is a day you're falling behind. But today, right now, you can catch up. You can start building the wealth you deserve. So close this audiobook. Open your brokerage account. Make your first investment. And welcome to the investor class. Welcome to real wealth building. Your new life starts now.